you doing?
Nothing.
The title of the movie looks ordinary, but the events in the movie aren't as ordinary as you could have imagined. So what you want to do now is that you want to sit back and have fun. But while having fun, you should prepare for the horrific event in the movie. The movie starts with a frightened security guard who is running from something invisible. He enters a room in the subway station and apologizes to his reflection. As he moves toward the room's largest mirror, to his dismay, he notices that it is starting to crack. He hurriedly cleans the mirrors, desperately apologizing to his reflection in the glass for running in the hope of being forgiven. A piece of the mirror then falls off. Trying to redeem himself, he picks up the shard with the intention of putting it back on the mirror. The man dies, however, feeling the repercussions of having his throat sliced even though he did not do it himself, as his reflection slowly slashes his own throat. If looking in the mirror would lead to death, then it should be banned. But this is the beginning of the horror event in this movie, so sit back and enjoy the recap without missing any moment. Ben Carson, a former undercover detective who was fired for shooting another cop, is later forced to work as a night guard at a department store whose contents were destroyed in a fire. The department store used to be a psychiatric hospital that experimented with treating schizophrenia. A mass killing took place in 1952, and the hospital was closed. It was later reopened as a luxury department store, the Mayflower. The guard remarks that the person Carson is replacing was preoccupied with cleaning the mirrors, and Carson remarks on how spotless they are throughout the store. The person Carson was replacing must have had an affinity with the mirror, but now the house has been burned down. Will Carson discover anything strange in the house? There's one way to find out. Carson's round begins normally, though on his first night he sees a door open in a mirror's reflection while it is actually closed. After investigating, he finds nothing. Carson experiences more intense visions the following evening, which he initially dismisses as hallucinations, due to a strong drug he started taking as a result of his alcohol dependency. He notices mysterious handprints on the mirror. Curious, he touches them, causing the mirror to break and injure his hand. Carson further hallucinates being set on fire, as well as seeing victims in various parts of the store who were burned to death. Afterwards, he finds the wallet of Gary Lewis, the man who dies at the beginning of the film, the night watchman he is replacing. The only piece of information is a note that says, Essicker. Carson then receives a package from Gary Lewis that was sent several days before his death. The package contains newspaper clippings about the fire and other crimes. The man convicted of burning the Mayflower was also convicted of killing his wife and children. How is it possible for him to kill his wife and children? The government officials couldn't grasp what led to the dilemma of what happened. Carson tells his younger sister, whose apartment he is staying at, about what he sees, believing that it is not him looking into the mirrors, but rather someone is looking at him. However, his sister is unconvinced. There's no way she would have believed it, but sooner or later she will understand what Carson was going through. Later, he decides to see the body of Gary Lewis at the morgue where his wife works, and she reluctantly agrees to let him see Gary Lewis. In the photos of his death, he notices Gary Lewis' body is in reflection in the mirror. The glass shard is bloody, but the one in reality is not. This convinces him that the mirrors are actually making people do things to themselves that they aren't actually doing. Wow, a mirror has the ability to make people do things to themselves that aren't ordinary. That's what happens when you deal with the Essicker. Who is this Essicker? You're about to find out. Meanwhile, Angela Ben's sister is getting into the bath and begins to relax when her reflection grips her jaw and begins to slowly tear it off, killing her. Now this is getting more terrible. It feels like everything is now centering against Ben. After arriving on the scene the next morning to see his sister's body, he returns to the store and attempts to destroy the mirrors, but they prove impervious and even regenerate from several bullets he fires at them. He demands to know what the mirror wants, and Essicker is written on the mirror. Ben investigates and finds the name Anna Essicker, a patient at the Psychiatric Institute. She supposedly died in the mass killing, but Ben discovers that she was actually transferred out 2 days prior to the event. After Angela's death, he realizes that the mirrors will eventually kill his family if he does not bring Anna Essicker to them. He goes to his wife's home and tries to remove or paint the surface of every mirror in the house, but his estranged wife, Amy, believes that he is undergoing a breakdown. He tries to show Amy what happens when he tries to break the mirrors by shooting them. But nothing happens, and she does not believe him. He looks in the window of his house and sees his children looking at him. Ben then leaves in frustration and embarrassment. However, Amy starts to believe Ben when she discovers her son, Michael, talking to his reflection. After calling him away, Michael's reflection remains, smiling at her. Amy calls Ben in a panic, who immediately returns home, and together they cover every reflective surface in the house. Shortly after, Ben discovers Anna Estaker's home, but she is not there. The owner of the house says that when Anna was here, strange things would happen with the mirrors, so they tried to get her help. The doctor's treatment was to lock Anna in a room of mirrors. Whatever was in her left her and entered the mirrors. After that, Estaker was sent to a convent, where mirrors are not permitted. After finding Anna, she explains to Ben that she was possessed by a demon. And while in the hospital, she was confined to a chair in a room that was surrounded by mirrors, as the doctors believed this treatment would cure her schizophrenia by forcing her to confront her own reflection. In reality, the demon within her was drawn from her and became trapped in the mirrors. Ben begs Anna to come back to the department store so that the demon will leave his family alone, though Anna refuses. Meanwhile, Ben's family is attacked by the mirrors. When Ben called Amy that night to ask about the well-being of the family, Amy realized that Michael had left the room. She panicked and went out to check for him, but Ben instructed her to stay away from the water because he felt the demon in the mirrors was a friend. Michael cleans the paint from all reflective surfaces with a butcher knife and turns all the faucets on, covering the floor with a thin, reflective layer of water. Amy is almost drowned by Michael's reflection in the bathtub, but she saves herself by pulling the drain plug. Meanwhile, a reflection of Amy almost slashes her daughter's throat, but the real Amy manages to save her. Amy calls Ben for help, and he abducts Anna at gunpoint. Anna returns to the mirror room and tells Ben to strap her up tight and leave immediately. Amy finds Michael playing in the water. Michael is pulled through the surface of the water by his own reflection and is trapped on the other side, underwater. As Anna opens her eyes and becomes repossessed, the mirrors explode. When Ben goes back to the mirror room, he finds that the demon has superhuman strength and is now creeping up the walls and ceiling. Ben shoots at it but fails to wound the demon. He then impales it on a broken steam pipe that ignites a nearby gas line. He tries to escape the crumbling building, but the demon attacks again, and he is forced to fight it off. The building gives way and various rubble comes down on the demon, killing it and supposedly Ben as well. At the family's home, Amy claws at the surface of the water in an attempt to rescue her drowning son. Suddenly, Michael is released from the other side of the reflection, and Amy is able to pull him to safety and revive him with CPR. Ben finally pulls himself out of the rubble and stumbles his way out of the building. Police and firemen are everywhere in the street, and a body is seen being taken in a bag by paramedics, but nobody stops Ben as he leaves. He realizes that something is different because the name on a badge is written in reverse, like a mirror. So is the word police on a car. His hand wand from earlier in the movie is on the opposite hand. Ben then realizes that he was crushed to death under the rubble and is now trapped in the mirror world. Fleeing the scene, he happens upon a mirror in town and he cannot see his reflection. He places his hand on it. The scene then changes to the real world and the audience sees Ben's handprint on the mirror. The camera pans and the credits roll. The first time you watch Josh Cole portray Gary Lewis in the opening scene, you'll realize the characters were perfectly chosen. He perfectly captured the mix of feelings you experience just before death. In the course of 3 minutes, I witnessed one performer portraying 3 different emotions in one scene: fear, vulnerability, and insanity. As stated, the remaining actors deliver strong performances. Amy Smart's brief yet effective performance as Angel Carson gave the movie a strong impact in the horror genre. I would definitively recommend this movie for all horror lovers. Thanks for watching another Essential Recap. Please like and subscribe, and leave a comment what you'd like to see next.